Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. Today, I want to talk about another topic that has come up on Instagram. And I shared this, maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, how I woke up in the middle of the night in fear and panic. And my mind was racing. It was stressed. It was looking at everything that was wrong and bad. It was in fear and worry and future projections and past ruminations, and it was so intense. So I used to experience that actually quite a bit, to be honest. That wasn't abnormal, but that's not very normal for me anymore. It happens occasionally, but it's not regular. Now, I shared this on Instagram and asked you all if that happens to you. And I got a resounding yes, that is something that you all deal with, that you would like support on what to do with it. Because what I shared is that I went through a little process that I have and helped myself settle down and get back to sleep after waking up with that panic. So that's what we're talking about today. There is an audio related to this, and it is going to be available at alignful.com/fear. And I will have it on this podcast, but I'll also have a separate download with some music that's edited from my podcast editor that you can just put in your email address and it will email it to you. So that's alignful.com/fear. alignful.com/fear. And that link will also be in the show notes. That will give you access to this audio so that if you wake up in the middle of the night with fear, instead of remembering what happened and I talked about in the podcast, you can actually just put in the audio and help yourself settle down. Okay. So first I want to say that there's not just one reason why this happens. And I've seen it, especially in the work I do with emotional clearing. I see this can happen in a few different formats. So one, when we go to sleep, it's the mind is unguarded, which can actually work in our favor sometimes, right? But sometimes it doesn't. So if you wake up and the mind is unguarded and you're kind of in that sleep state, the mind will just easily go into running its old programming, right? Of fear, worry, all of those things. Now, during the day, that programming might be running on some level, but since you're a little bit more conscious, you might not be fully consumed by it all the time. But know that the mind is less guarded in the night. And so if you wake up, it might just go into its old loop, a very familiar loop. And that's one way this can show up. And that's why it can feel so intense, because the mind's whoa, I've got free reign to stress and worry and create problems, Another way it can show up is, I like to think of it as the middle of the night can actually be a time where we release beanbags. So emotional beanbags, or as I like to call them too, emotional charges that are stuck in our body. That's, when we're doing emotional processing, emotional clearing, emotional integration, we're helping release those charges so they can reintegrate and sit in the body naturally, right? There's a place for all emotions in the body, but the charges are when one emotion gets really built up and pent up, and then it's an activated part within you. So if you've been doing a lot of emotional clearing work, what can happen is these middle of the night releases. And you could wake up crying, you could wake up angry, a dream could wake you up. But also, once that happens, the mind might attach to that and get fearful or worried, oh my God, what's wrong? I'm waking up crying. I had this really alarming dream, things like that. For the most part, And of course, you always would want to check in with yourself, check in with your inner voice. But what I have found through my work is that that's usually just like something that needed to process. And because the mind's guard was down, your subconscious could process and release that without you really having to do anything. So that's actually a really great thing, but it can feel a little scary if you haven't dealt with that a lot. Okay. And then a third way that that can show up is, and this is actually what happened to me, is that if you've done something big or had a big insight like the day before, or did like inner child work, or you had a big processing, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the emotional hangover. Well, that can start like in the middle of the night after a big insight, a big processing, a big session like that. And I often think of it as just like residual, like we're squeezing the last of the juice out of the orange. And so that can be like, we're releasing everything that's left. And that can be very scary for the mind, for the ego, right? Because it has an identity around your pain. It has an identity around certain emotions. It has an identity of suffering and victimhood, right? It likes to hold on to that. So once that gets cleared at a subconscious and unconscious, a spiritual, energetic level, there might be this residual release. And in the night, it might wake you up like, literally, you might wake up in that start. And it's like the mind is like, no, I got to hold on to myself. I got to hold on to this pain. And then it can be really grippy. So it's okay. And I just want to share that, like, it's okay for these situations to come up. But instead of letting them, in particular, letting the mind get to control the narrative when you wake up with that, it's much better to know what's happening, even in that moment, being able to identify like, oh yeah, I did some big clearing work yesterday. It might be from that. Or, oh yeah, I had an emotional day. It might be from that, right? Or, hey, mind is just going on having a rodeo. And the important things to remember in the middle of the night, and for women, it's like, I also think about this, is these are important things that I like to remind myself when I have my period, is we don't have to believe everything we think at that time. I know it feels really real. I know it feels really scary. I know it feels really intense and can be really overwhelming. But just because those thoughts are coming, it doesn't mean they're true. And that's one of my first steps in this process when I wake up with something like this, is to be like, okay, this is the mind running wild. This isn't real. Because if you're like me, when you wake up like that, it feels all consuming, real. These are hard truths. How could you have missed this? You're a horrible person. You've done something bad. You've done something wrong. Nobody likes you. You're never going to make it in life. Like, you're poor also. Like, all of a sudden you have no money. You shouldn't have spent that $3 at the coffee shop. Like, really, it can be really granular or really big scale. And just know that I hear you. I see you. I've experienced this. And that's not real. And I can tell you almost every time, probably like 98% of the time, the vast majority of those panics and fears in the middle of the night, the next morning I wake up and I'm like, it's like not there. I just don't feel, it doesn't feel true. But in the middle of the night, it's like the world is ending. So with that, one of the most important things to do is recognize this is the mind going wild. This isn't all true. And I don't have to listen. Remember, the mind is actually here to be a servant to the heart. Okay? And it's not here to run the show. Do you believe me? It's not. Your mind, Albert Einstein, I'm sure I've quoted this before, but Albert Einstein had this beautiful quote which says, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And the rational mind thinks it needs to run the show and it needs to be in fear and keep you safe and prevent you from all this stuff. But that's ignoring your heart, right? Your inner voice, your intuitive mind that has so much more beautiful guidance for you. So when this happens in the night, I first am like, no, this isn't real. And if any of it is real, I can address it tomorrow. So I tell my mind that I'm like, mind, I know you're trying to keep me safe and this is not helpful right now. I need rest. And I instead am not going to let you go down this path. And literally, this can be the hardest thing in the world. But it's like I say to myself, I'm the boss. I'm the boss. You do not get to wake me up in the night and freak me out and keep me up ruminating about shit that I can't control. And so it feels easier. It feels more comfortable. It even feels important to let the mind go off and run through all these terrible scenarios. But it's not. If there's nothing to be done about these things in the middle of the night, and even if there were, unless there's something very clear, very actionable that needs to be handled, fear is not a good advisor. So if you're reacting from that place of fear that is caused by an unruly mind in the middle of the night, I guarantee you're not really probably going to like the results in the morning, right? So your biggest job at that point is to stop the pattern, to stop the thoughts, to just say no. In fact, if you listened to my episode a few weeks ago about the energetic upgrade, I said that one of the ways I'm maintaining that is that even during the day, my mind wants to ruminate and go down the path of what's wrong, what could go wrong, and I'm stopping those thoughts. And that's not I don't recommend this as a regular practice. I think the thoughts can be fine. But if you're really trying to bring yourself back, you have to put your foot down and say no more. And I just can't tell you how much I understand. It feels easier, more important, and life or death to let those thoughts happen, but that's not real. So stop them. Just say no. And then from that place, I, of course, usually when I'm waking up with that experience, there's also an emotional charge there. And so I really like to drop into my body, drop into the breath, okay? Find the space where I'm feeling this intensity, because that in itself gets you out of the mind, right? The mind is going to make stories about what's happening in the body. We don't want the stories, but we want to process the experience in the present moment. Mind isn't in the present moment when it's freaking out. So bring yourself back to the body, back to the breath, back to the present, and breathe. And then after you spend some time breathing and reminding yourself, this isn't real, I don't need to listen, then I like to drop in and ask my inner voice, how do you see this? Inner voice, what do I need to know about this? Or you can ask the part of your body like we did a couple weeks ago, referencing a lot of podcasts, but a couple weeks ago we talked about an overwhelming emotion. So you can ask that part of your body, what do I need to know? What do I need to hear? What wisdom do you have for me that my mind can't see right now? And then listen. And for me, often in that listening, I get beautiful words of wisdom that are so soothing, so calming, so loving, so what I need in the middle of the night. And that's usually when I fall back asleep. So with that, alignful.com/fear, that will give you the audio, the edited audio. But I'm going to do this right now for you so you can listen. And I hope that this is supportive and I hope that it helps you. And remember too, I have a new program coming up called the Emotional Edit, which really helps you become building from the ground up how to express, process, integrate, and regulate your emotions on the regular so you have fewer of these experiences that really catch you off guard. And if they do show up, you know exactly what to do to come back to yourself, back to your inner voice, and release the charge so it doesn't drown you. Okay, with that, here is the audio. And I definitely recommend, if this is happening in the middle of the night, to roll over, lie on your back, and put headphones on, and then play. Welcome. Welcoming the mind, welcoming the breath, welcoming the body to this experience right here, right now, exactly as it is. You can go ahead and turn onto your back. Feel the bed beneath you. Feel that you're held and supported. Feel that even though the mind is racing and there might be panic and the heart rate might be up and you might be really stressed or scared or uncomfortable in this moment, feel that you are actually safe. And just check in with your surroundings. Sense in. What do you feel around you? Can you feel the bed or your pillow or your blanket? Maybe your eye mask. Can you hear beyond this audio, maybe your breath? Maybe there's crickets outside. Maybe you have an animal. Maybe there's a hum of the air conditioner or the heater, or the drop of the ice in the ice bucket. Whatever you hear, just sense into it. Attune yourself back to your senses. I want to remind you right here, right now, that while the mind may be racing and stressing and predicting all the bad, that's not real in this moment. You don't have to hold on to those stories right now. For even if some of them were true, we know that sleep is actually going to support you more in handling a situation than a racing mind in the middle of the night ever will. So I invite you now to speak to your mind, to speak clearly and directly and calmly and say, stop. I am the boss. I get to choose my thoughts, and I am not allowing this to continue. And then exhale. We know it feels important. We know it feels like this must be heard, but it doesn't. Not here, not now. So one more time, say to the mind, stop. I'm the boss. I choose my thoughts. And we are not continuing this pattern tonight. Exhale. There is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with the mind. It's just feeling a little extra loud tonight, and that's okay. And mind, we promise that tomorrow we will handle anything that's lingering, anything that you feel wasn't completed will be handled tomorrow after a full night of sleep. Now I'll invite you to sense your body, wherever it is. Can you feel your toes? Maybe wiggle them. Maybe move your feet side to side underneath the sheets. Squeeze and release your calf muscles. Squeeze and release your knees. Squeeze tight and release your quads and hamstrings. Squeeze and release your glutes. You can even shimmy your hips a little bit to settle deeper into the bed. Squeeze and release your belly, focusing here on releasing the belly. Let it soften. You can inhale and fill your ribs first forward, and then exhale. And then inhale, fill your back ribs into the bed, and exhale. Then you can gently feel your shoulders, maybe a gentle rock. Squeeze and release your biceps. Squeeze and release your forearms. Squeeze and release your hands. You can squeeze into a fist and then stretch them out long. Do that a few times. And then you can roll your wrists one way or the other. And then just gently wiggle your fingers. And then you can either rest your hands on your body for that extra weight, or you can gently curl your index finger over your thumbnail and rest your hands by your side. Good. You can gently, subtly rock your head side to side to release your neck. You can open and stretch your mouth, stretch your jaw. That might activate a yawn. Big stretch and release. Doing that again, big stretch, opening the jaw wide. Maybe activating a yawn. And then release. Releasing the subtle hitch of your jaw near your ear. Letting the jaw literally start to drop a little bit. Releasing any squeezing or tightness in your cheeks, under your eyes. You can squeeze your eyes tighter closed and then release them to a soft close. Squeeze them closed tight, release them soft. One more, squeeze your eyes tight and release. With your eyes closed, you can send your eyeballs to the right and hold that for 3 breaths. Inhale, eyeballs back to center. Exhale, eyeballs look to the left with your eyes closed. And hold that for 3 breaths. Inhale to center. Exhale, roll your eyes back, looking up or back with your eyes closed, still being gentle. Hold it for 3 breaths. Exhale, release. Finally, on another exhale, look down gently for 3 breaths. Good. And this time, inhale, come back. Let your eyes rest, keeping the lids closed. And then finally, you can inhale, lift your eyebrows, and exhale, release. And then find any last little wiggles, little flicks or flutters of the body, settling you back into self. With every gentle breath, you feel the weight of your body into the bed, settling deeper, relaxing deeper, releasing deeper, dropping deeper and deeper and deeper into rest. You are so safe in this moment. You are so held. Hold that safety. Sense it. Breathe it. Be it. There's nothing to do in this moment except come back to self. Come back to your breath. Stand your ground. We are not going down that path of mind chatter. We're going down the path of body presence. Finding a space in the body that's asking for your attention. If there's a charge there, find it. Maybe it feels like a tightness or a fluttering or a gripping or a weight. Do a gentle scan of the body and find that. Allow yourself to arrive there and just say hello. Welcome. You're allowed to be here. We know the mind is trying to make a story about you, but we don't want to hear the story right now. We just want to be here with you, breathe with you. And then start to breathe into this space. You may bring your hands there or just bring your awareness. Inhaling and then focus on the exhale, sending the air out of that space. So inhale light into that area of the body with the charge, and exhale anything that doesn't serve from that part where there's a charge. Inhale light, exhale what doesn't serve. Inhale light, exhale what doesn't serve. Pulsing through this for a few moments. Breathing, breathing, breathing. Continuing the breath, being so gentle, so kind with yourself, allowing your body to feel fully held and seen and allowed. We'll just invite a couple questions before allowing you to drift off back to deep rest, being held through the wisdom of your inner voice as you allow yourself to easefully, deeply, and completely go back to sleep. Inner voice, what do I need to know right now? What do you want to remind me of in this moment? Inner voice, what wisdom do you have to share that the mind can't see in this moment? Inner voice, am I safe right now? Is it safe to be in my body? Is it safe to turn off the mind for the night? Is it safe to rest deeply and completely? Inner voice, do you love me? Can you show me either through visuals or sensations or memories or songs or physical representation? Can you show me this love so I can truly sense it and feel it and let it envelope me completely so I can rest? Enjoy it all. Let it flow. Let yourself be full with this love and light and presence of your inner voice as you drift off to sleep with all of the wisdom flooding through you, knowing that tomorrow is a new day.